Ignoring the equipment grounding conductor and relying solely on a ground rod is problematic for several reasons. Firstly, it creates a safety hazard. In the event of a fault in the electrical system, such as a short circuit, the current will not have a proper path to return to the main electrical panel. Without a continuous equipment grounding conductor, the current may find an alternate path through the grounded metal framing, appliances, or even people, potentially causing electrical shocks or fires. Secondly, it results in voltage potential at the pole barn. The ground rod creates a localized ground reference which may differ from the ground reference at the main electrical panel. This can result in voltage potential differences between the two locations, potentially leading to voltage readings on metal surfaces within the pole barn. Thirdly, ground loop currents can form. The absence of an equipment grounding conductor can create ground loop currents, which are unwanted electrical currents that flow through the grounding system. These currents can interfere with electronic equipment and cause electromagnetic interference. Fourthly, there is a National Electrical Code violation. The National Electrical Code requires an equipment grounding conductor for all electrical circuits to provide a safe return path for fault currents. Ignoring the equipment grounding conductor would be a violation of code and could compromise the safety and effectiveness of the electrical system. Fifthly, corrosion and damage can occur. The ground rod will be exposed to the elements and may be subject to corrosion over time. This can degrade its effectiveness as a grounding electrode and increase the risk of grounding issues. In summary, while the installation may appear to function, it lacks the proper grounding protections and poses safety hazards that make it an unacceptable practice. The equipment grounding conductor is essential for safety, ensuring a low impedance path for fault current to return to the source. This facilitates the rapid operation of overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers or fuses, to clear the fault quickly. A ground rod, while providing a connection to earth, has a much higher impedance path compared to a properly installed equipment grounding conductor. This higher impedance can limit the fault current, preventing the overcurrent protection device from operating quickly enough, thus increasing the risk of electrical shock or fire. The equipment grounding conductor typically consists of copper or aluminum wire that runs along with the circuit conductors, connecting the metal enclosures of electrical equipment back to the main service panel. This conductor provides a dedicated low impedance path for fault currents. The size of the equipment grounding conductor is determined by the size of the circuit conductors, as specified in the National Electrical Code Table 250.122. Proper installation of the equipment grounding conductor is crucial. It must be securely connected to the metal enclosures of electrical equipment such as junction boxes, panels, and appliances. Connection should be made using approved methods, such as grounding screws or lugs. The equipment grounding conductor should also be properly bonded to any metallic water pipes or other grounding electrodes present at the building. This bonding helps to ensure that all metal parts are at the same ground potential, reducing the risk of voltage differences and electrical shock. In contrast, a ground rod is a metal rod that is driven into the earth to provide a connection to ground. Ground rods are typically made of copper or copper-clad steel. The depth and number of ground rods required are specified in the National Electrical Code Section 250.53. Ground rods are primarily intended to provide a reference to earth potential and to dissipate static electricity. They are not intended to serve as the primary path for fault current. Relying solely on a ground rod for fault current return is dangerous because the ground rod's impedance to earth can vary depending on soil conditions, moisture levels, and other factors. This variability can make it difficult to predict the performance of the grounding system under fault conditions. Furthermore, the impedance of the earth itself can be relatively high, especially in dry or rocky soils. This high impedance can limit the fault current, preventing the overcurrent protection device from operating quickly enough. The National Electrical Code requires the use of both an equipment grounding conductor and a grounding electrode system, such as ground rods, to provide a comprehensive grounding system. The equipment grounding conductor provides a low impedance path for fault current, while the grounding electrode system provides a connection to earth potential. Together, these two components work to ensure the safety and reliability of the electrical system. When installing a subpanel in a separate building, such as a pole barn, it is especially important to run an equipment grounding conductor from the main service panel to the subpanel. This equipment grounding conductor must be sized according to the National Electrical Code Table 250.122, based on the size of the circuit conductors feeding the subpanel. In addition to the equipment grounding conductor, a grounding electrode system is also required at the subpanel location. This grounding electrode system typically consists of one or more ground rods driven into the earth. The equipment grounding conductor and the grounding electrode system must be bonded together at the subpanel location. This bonding ensures that all metal parts are at the same ground potential. It is important to note that the neutral conductor and the equipment grounding conductor must be kept separate at the subpanel location. The neutral conductor should only be connected to the neutral busbar in the subpanel, and the equipment grounding conductor should only be connected to the ground busbar. The neutral busbar and the ground busbar should not be bonded together in the subpanel. Bonding the neutral and ground conductors together in the subpanel can create a parallel path for neutral current, which can lead to nuisance tripping of circuit breakers and other problems. In summary, when installing a subpanel in a separate building, such as a pole barn, it is essential to run an equipment grounding conductor from the main service panel to the subpanel, install a grounding electrode system at the subpanel location, and bond the equipment grounding conductor and the grounding electrode system together at the subpanel location. It is also important to keep the neutral and equipment grounding conductors separate at the subpanel location. Following these guidelines will help to ensure the safety and reliability of the electrical system. The potential differences created by missing equipment grounding conductor can lead to a variety of issues. For instance, sensitive electronic equipment may malfunction due to voltage fluctuations or noise on the ground. These fluctuations can disrupt the operation of computers, audio equipment, and other electronic devices. Additionally, the lack of a proper ground can increase the risk of electrostatic discharge, which can damage sensitive electronic components. Ground loop currents, which can occur when there are multiple ground paths with different potentials, can also cause problems. These currents can flow through signal cables, creating noise and interference that can degrade signal quality. In audio systems, ground loops can manifest as a hum or buzz. In video systems, they can cause flickering or distortion. In data communication systems, they can lead to errors and data loss. Furthermore, the absence of an equipment grounding conductor can create a hazardous situation during lightning strikes. Lightning can induce high voltage surges in electrical systems. Without a proper grounding system, these surges can find their way through equipment, causing damage or creating a fire hazard. A properly installed grounding system provides a low impedance path for lightning to discharge to earth, protecting equipment and preventing fires. In addition to the safety and performance benefits, complying with the National Electrical Code requirements for grounding is essential for legal and insurance reasons. If an electrical system is not properly grounded, it may not meet the requirements for insurance coverage. In the event of an electrical fire or shock, the property owner may be held liable if the electrical system was not installed in accordance with the National Electrical Code. Therefore, it is crucial to ensure that all electrical work is performed by a qualified electrician and that it meets the applicable code requirements. When inspecting an existing electrical system, it is important to check the grounding system to ensure that it is properly installed and maintained. This includes verifying that the equipment grounding conductor is properly connected to all metal enclosures, that the grounding electrode system is properly installed, and that the neutral and ground conductors are properly separated at subpanels. Any deficiencies in the grounding system should be corrected immediately to ensure the safety and reliability of the electrical system. In summary, ignoring the equipment grounding conductor and relying solely on a ground rod is a dangerous practice that can have serious consequences. A properly installed grounding system is essential for safety, performance, and compliance with the National Electrical Code. The equipment grounding conductor provides a low impedance path for fault current, protects against electrical shock and fire, and ensures the proper operation of electronic equipment. Therefore, it is crucial to prioritize grounding in all electrical installations and to ensure that the grounding system is properly installed and maintained. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, is a comprehensive set of standards for electrical wiring and equipment installation in the United States. It is developed and published by the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, and is updated every 3 years to reflect the latest advancements in electrical technology and safety practices. The NEC covers a wide range of topics, including wiring methods, overcurrent protection, grounding, and equipment installation. It is used by electricians, inspectors, and other electrical professionals to ensure that electrical systems are installed safely and in accordance with best practices. The NEC is not a law itself, but it is often adopted by state and local governments as a legal requirement. In areas where the NEC is adopted, electrical installations must comply with its provisions. Failure to comply with the NEC can result in fines, penalties, and even legal action. The NEC is organized into chapters, articles, and sections, each addressing a specific aspect of electrical installation. Chapter 1 covers general requirements such as definitions, wiring methods, and overcurrent protection. Chapter 2 covers wiring and protection, including conductor sizing, overcurrent protection requirements, and grounding. Chapter 3 covers wiring methods and materials, including conduit, cable, and raceways. Chapter 4 covers equipment for general use, including appliances, lighting fixtures, and motors. Chapter 5 covers special occupancies, such as hazardous locations, healthcare facilities, and agricultural buildings. Chapter 6 covers special equipment, such as electric signs, swimming pools, and elevators. Chapter 7 covers special conditions, such as emergency systems, fire alarm systems, and communication systems. Chapter 8 covers communications systems such as telephone, data, and cable television systems. Chapter 9 contains tables and examples that are used to supplement the requirements in the other chapters. Within each chapter, articles provide more specific guidance on a particular topic. For example, Article 250 covers grounding and bonding. Within Article 250, sections provide detailed requirements for specific aspects of grounding and bonding, such as grounding electrode systems, equipment grounding conductors, and bonding of metal enclosures. The NEC uses a numbering system to identify each section. For example, Section 250.122 covers the size of equipment grounding conductors. The NEC also contains tables that provide information on conductor ampacity, overcurrent protection, and other electrical parameters. These tables are essential for proper electrical system design and installation. When using the NEC, it is important to understand the definitions of key terms. The NEC provides definitions for many common electrical terms such as ampacity, conductor, grounding, and bonding. These definitions are essential for interpreting the requirements of the NEC correctly. It is also important to understand the difference between mandatory rules and permissive rules. Mandatory rules are identified by the word shall or shall not. These rules must be followed. Permissive rules are identified by the word shall be permitted or shall be allowed. These rules are optional. The NEC is a complex and comprehensive document, and it can be challenging to navigate. However, it is essential for ensuring the safety and reliability of electrical systems. By understanding the organization of the NEC, the definitions of key terms, and the difference between mandatory and permissive rules, electrical professionals can use the NEC effectively to design and install safe and code-compliant electrical systems. Always consult the latest edition of the National Electrical Code and seek guidance from qualified electrical professionals when working on electrical installations. Electricity poses significant safety risks, and it is crucial to follow all applicable codes and standards to protect people and property. One common misconception is that the neutral wire is sufficient for grounding purposes. The neutral wire carries the return current from electrical devices back to the source, while the equipment grounding conductor provides a separate path for fault currents. Relying on the neutral wire for grounding can be dangerous because if the neutral wire becomes disconnected, the metal parts of electrical equipment can become energized, creating a shock hazard. The equipment grounding conductor provides a redundant path for fault currents, ensuring that the overcurrent protection device will operate quickly even if the neutral wire is disconnected. Another common misconception is that ground rods alone are sufficient for grounding. Ground rods provide a connection to earth, which helps to stabilize the voltage of the electrical system and provide a path for lightning to discharge. However, ground rods have a high impedance compared to equipment grounding conductors. This means that they are not effective at carrying large fault currents. The equipment grounding conductor provides a low impedance path for fault currents, ensuring that the overcurrent protection device will operate quickly. A third common misconception is that all electrical equipment must be grounded. While most electrical equipment should be grounded, there are some exceptions. For example, double-insulated appliances do not require grounding because they have 2 layers of insulation that protect against electrical shock. However, it is important to verify that electrical equipment is properly labeled as double-insulated before omitting the grounding connection. A fourth common misconception is that grounding is only necessary for safety. While safety is the primary reason for grounding, it also improves the performance of electrical systems. A properly grounded system reduces electrical noise and interference, which can improve the operation of sensitive electronic equipment. Grounding also helps to prevent voltage fluctuations, which can damage electrical equipment. A fifth common misconception is that grounding is only necessary for new electrical installations. Grounding is also important for existing electrical installations. Over time, grounding connections can corrode or become loose, reducing their effectiveness. It is important to periodically inspect and test the grounding system to ensure that it is functioning properly. Any deficiencies in the grounding system should be corrected immediately to ensure the safety and reliability of the electrical system. Finally, remember that electrical work can be dangerous and should only be performed by qualified individuals who have the necessary training and experience. When working on electrical systems, always follow safe work practices, such as de-energizing circuits before working on them and using appropriate personal protective equipment. By understanding the basics of grounding and following safe work practices, you can help to ensure the safety and reliability of electrical systems.